Good evening, everybody. Everyone who is here tonight, that will be here to begin with, is here. So Mr. Martin will be joining us a little later, and so we'll welcome him when he is able. So I will officially call this regular school board meeting to order of March 14th, 2022. And if you will stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Dahman, any additions or corrections to the agenda that you are aware of?
There are no changes to the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
There's a motion on the floor made by Rick, seconded by Leslie, to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor respond with aye. Aye, and opposed nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Next is action on minutes from our last meeting of February 28th.
I'll move to approve the minutes for the regular meeting held on February 28, 2022 as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion on the floor made by Jen, seconded by Shelley. Sorry, Dave. To approve the minutes for the regular meeting held on February 28th, 2022 as presented. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor respond with aye. Aye, and opposed nay. Thank you. That motion carries. Moving down to vouchers, which are in board docs.
I'll make a motion to approve general checking account vouchers totaling $433,442.37 and building fund 49 vouchers totaling $598,877.61 as presented.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor made by Rick, seconded by Leslie, to approve general checking account vouchers totaling $433,442.37 and building fund 49 vouchers totaling $598,877.61 as presented. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor respond with aye. Aye, and opposed nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Looks like we don't have a student council rep, so we will move right on down to public comment. There is one person signed up for public comment tonight. Just real quickly, I'll review sort of the cliff notes of the policy. Public comment is limited to 15 minutes with 3 minutes given to each speaker. And just as a courtesy, I will alert the speaker when they have 30 seconds left. Public comment is limited to items on the agenda for the evening. Participants, if you would please introduce yourselves by name before beginning. And then participants should address the whole board, not particular board members or other staff members. And board members will not respond, as public comment is not a question and answer session. So with that, I will welcome Karen Reed to the podium.
Start over. All right. Good evening again. I'm here just to say thank you to all of you. We have had a really tough 2 years, and I want to thank you for listening and following the experts on things and setting protocols that went along with the experts, and for keeping our students, our staff, and our community safe. I appreciate the fact that you guys took a lot of crap that you probably shouldn't have, and I thank you for that too. But I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you guys have done the last 2 years. And to the people who are thinking of running or becoming a board member, I want to thank you for putting your hat in the ring and coming out. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. All right, we will move down to item number Update, Mr. John, I will turn it over to you for some Red Hawk highlights.
Thank you. A couple different things that I want to highlight that have been happening over the last few weeks since our last board meeting or that are coming up. First, school districts across the state are eligible for a Kids Get Ahead initiative. It's not a grant. It's really any school districts that want to apply for it can, and it's some additional funding to be used between now and December of 2024 for mental health support in schools. Our district qualifies for about $56,000 in that funding, so we'll be working with our administrators and other staff members on how to best utilize those funds within the guidelines of the initiative. A couple things that are happening throughout the month of March in our schools. March is Youth Art in Schools Month. We'll be sharing student work on our website and social media. You maybe have seen some of that already from all of our different schools, some very impressive artwork. And Mr. Calvert, the Harmony and Consolidated Art teacher, was recently represented the state at the National Art Education Association's Delegate Assembly and was honored to be a presenter at the National Art Education Conference in New York City. So one of our art staff members doing some awesome things and both at a state and a national level. March is also Music in Our Schools Month, and a number of our schools have spring music programs coming up. Next week, Wednesday and Thursday, there'll be a 5th grade choir concert at Northside Intermediate School with a patriotic theme. And on March 19th, the Milton Show Choir has their community show and competition event. So an opportunity for any interested community members to see our 5th grade choir concert or our show choir perform. This past Friday, Harmony Elementary School had Family Literacy Night. The event was literacy focused, had activities at a variety of stations around the school with a camping theme. And I apologize for this, I didn't name this, but it's Come Back and Read Some More was the camping thing, yep. Staff volunteers donated their time to organize and run the event for families. So a great opportunity for our families to get into Harmony Elementary School and take part in some literacy events. I've scheduled a number of community coffee breaks coming up over the next few weeks to have an opportunity to get out and meet with any interested community members. We've publicized those dates and times both on our website and through social media, so I'm looking forward to that. Today, some new playground equipment was installed at Milton West for our early childhood program. So there'll be a nice addition for our early childhood students at Milton West to be able to get out and utilize that playground equipment. And lastly, back on March 2nd, Milton High School's Finance and Investment Challenge Bowl team finished first place in the Rock County Championships. And not only the winning team, but we had 4 different teams from Milton High School that took part. 3 of those 4 made it to the semifinals, including 2 teams that made it to the finals. And the team that finished in first place advances to the Finance and Investment Challenge Bowl State Championship, which will be held on May 18th in Madison. So some neat things that are happening with our different clubs, performing groups. We highlighted last time about some of our athletic teams that had outstanding success over the winter season. So some great things happening across our schools for students and staff.
Questions for Rich? Thank you for pointing out your coffee breaks. I was going to point that out, but I'm glad you highlighted it. I think that's a great idea. I read that in the Red Hawk review, so thanks for doing that. Appreciate that. All right, moving on, we will move down to item number 3A, technology infrastructure. Leslie, did you want to sum up something, chairman of the technology committee, or do you want to just turn it over to Ryan?
Yeah, I can say some. So, okay. So we met on Wednesday, March 9th, and Ryan presented the capital improvement plan, which is a 5-year plan that for now includes 2022, 23. So it's everything that follows for the next 5 years, all the way through 26 and 27. And it is prepared and updated annually, much like our other 5-year plans are done. So he highlighted some things this year that, in addition, we added, of course, 26 and 27. There was an expansion of summary information, especially with indications regarding federal E-rate program funding that's eligible. The E-rate program can be used to and applied help us get discounts on eligible services, as well as helping us with a percentage of the cost for things like internet access, telecommunication services, and other related equipment. We currently, I guess, are at about 40 to 50%. Is that right, Ryan? 50%, yeah. And so things are looking good in that regard. We don't have any indication of any upcoming funding need with certain segments of the technology plan. There was, forgive me, I'll have to ask the panels. What are they called again? I'm sorry.
For interactive whiteboards.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, yeah, you go ahead.
So our interactive whiteboards, we have a 10-year replacement cycle on them. Going through there. And then we have about 90,000 committed for next year as a placeholder to bring in boards primarily to our north side school and also to this district office and some replacement boards. We maintain a standing replacement amount to be able to go in when we need to replace boards. We also have about 30,000 set inside for next year to be able to go in and replace our content filter. We're required under federal law to have a content filter in place for our students. And so that allows us to allow filtered access for all of our students. Those are the big things for next year. Leslie mentioned the replacement cycle and the interactive whiteboards piece. Are there any questions with the plan as you see it?
Ryan, more of a comment than a question. Just wanted to, I'll make a similar comment for Stephen here shortly, but wanted to thank you for the effort in putting together the 5-year roadmap. I know the here and now year is the one we're looking at most, but having a roadmap of not only what we're going to do, but what do we anticipate it's going to cost for the future is valuable from a planning standpoint. And I know a lot of effort goes into putting that together. So again, thanks for assembling that and presenting it to us.
You're welcome. And on behalf of the team that puts a lot of work in on that, thank you for them also. Yeah. Thanks.
I had a quick question before you sit down.
Yeah, oh yeah, please.
I noticed that if we look at next year, the amount that's estimated for budgeting, but then the following year it jumps up quite a bit. Is that how well? I mean, I think my question is, are we? And maybe this is a Carrie question too. Is budget wise, is that a doable thing?
We take a look at that every year, and Carrie's welcome to jump in if she'd like, but that's something that we review every year to make sure that it's something that we can fund. A lot of that is driven by equipment replacement cycles, but also by the amounts of federal funding we receive and various other factors. We try to combine purchasing together to leverage our buying power, for instance, and that will shift sometimes what the year placeholders are for when we want to bring equipment in. Generally, we review it annually to see if it's something we can tackle, and we do have some flexibility to move things around. For example, there's a variance on networking equipment refresh from 5 to 7 years, and we kind of take that in terms of equipment life cycles, roadmaps for when there's going to be end of sales, end of service. So there's some variance in there that gives us some ability to shift some things around and be responsive. And then we generally aim for the targets that we project. Everything in here we always want to take with a grain of salt when we're projecting technology needs forward, of course, because there is some inherent variability in there. Does that get at your question?
It does, thanks. And just another quick follow-up are the estimated amounts, is that with the eBay, like have you estimated the eBay discount, or is that like before you anticipate the E-rate? E-rate.
That's a great question. Everything that's represented in there would be pre-E-rate discount.
Okay.
So that'd be prior to taking any of that into account. One thing, Leslie mentioned this earlier, the 40 to 50%. We teeter on the line between 40 and 50, and that's based on our free and reduced lunch counts as a district. For the past 2 years, we've been at 50%, but we don't have any way to project forward what that discount rate's going to be, or ultimately what's eligible to be reimbursed. That's determined on an annual basis a year prior to when the funding would take place.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I do just one follow-up on that. I saw that Carrie came up, and I think it is important if Carrie, if you can share a little bit about the future funding for technology projects. And I know that Ryan shared the important takeaway from what Ryan shared is that there's flexibility there. Everything, we need to list them in the different projects in a certain year, and we kind of estimate when that need will be. But we aren't in any way saying that, especially 3, 4, or 5 years down the road, that that's the time that we'll be doing those projects. We do review it on an annual basis and make adjustments.
Right. So as Ryan was speaking and answering your question, I went back to my notes from the meeting. And so just my takeaways at a high level is really the purpose of this document is it's a starting point, it's forward-looking, and it represents foundational equipment or systems that we need in technology. So when exactly some of those things happen, as Ryan said, is once you get past next year, right? Every year we go back and say, okay, what do we have and what needs to be done and what can be moved and what's fluid and what is our E-rate funding. So the point isn't necessarily to build a budget for the next 5 years. The point is to identify fundamental pieces that we need to run technology in our district. So you see them coming and we can plan for them. And then the other piece I think that's really important, when listening to Ryan too, is that you have some understanding what E-rate is and how the district benefits from that federal money. So those are kind of my takeaways. We had talked in the committee about there might be some different funding sources or different eligibility with grants and so forth. And then Ryan also talked about some federal grants that are available as well into the future. But also with technology, it changes so rapidly that again, when we get too far out, we need to be, prices change, technology changes, and that's the tech team's world, not mine, but I know it exists. So those are my takeaways from the conversation. And really, since I'm up here and I'll go sit back down, but before I do that, with Stephen's plan, it's really the same thing, right? We are where we at right now. This is our starting point. We know we need, I can do this one better, roofs and blacktop and HVAC, those things, we know we're gonna need them. So again, both of these documents are how we identify our systems, costs of maintaining those systems, so that we can meet student needs. And then the tech team also meets business office needs. And then in the B&G world, we're providing our safe and healthful learning environment, which is a board responsibility. So this just demonstrates how you're doing that as well.
Thank you. Any other questions for Leslie or for Ryan?
I would share one quick distinction that I brought up at the committee meeting that I think bears mentioning. When we say technology, my mind, and maybe some other folks, goes to the laptops, the iPads, the things that we have in our kids' and teachers' hands. And this discussion is really, that's a technology piece. This discussion is really separate from that, kind of in a separate bucket, if you will. This is revolving around a 5-year look ahead at what we need as an infrastructure to make those pieces work. Is that fair, Ryan? Yeah. And so just for folks to keep that distinction, we're not talking about a 5-year look ahead as like when we would replace iPads or laptops. That's an issue, but that's not this issue. That's a different piece of the puzzle. So just wanted to reiterate that.
Thanks for that, Joe. Any other questions, comments for Leslie and or Ryan?
Just one more thing that I'd like to share is just a thank you to Ryan and to the technology team. We have an outstanding staff in our technology department. They've worked hard on identifying what those long-term needs are going to be, anticipating what at least as of now those costs would be, and laying it out in detail like this. So congratulations to them and thank you to them for their work.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other questions, comments before we move on? Thanks so much, Leslie. Thanks, Ryan and Carrie. And we will move on to the next item, which is the discussion and possible action on the 5-year capital maintenance and improvement plan. Mr. Shantz.
You want to take this off?
I certainly can. Oops, let me unmute here. Yeah, and like we said, it was a joint meeting, of course. The second and third piece of that were Stephen and Carrie's interest areas specifically. And Stephen's going to share with us the 5-year look ahead, both from our vehicles. We treat those kind of on their own little 5-year spreadsheet, if you will, and then more relative to the building and grounds general items, if you will. And so, Stephen, take it off.
Thank you. I'll start off tonight actually with the vehicle and equipment replacement plan. Sorry, Kim, had this one teed up. So the first piece I'll present on tonight is, like Joe said, we keep a 5-year replacement schedule for all of our district fleet of vehicles and also our equipment, whether it be lawn and garden, lawn equipment, all that good stuff, cleaning equipment, things that carry a high dollar value that continually needs to be replaced and cycled through. The recommendation for the upcoming fiscal year is two items. The first item would be replacing the nutrition team van. That's from 2005, and we'd be replacing that with pretty much the exact same van except a 2022 model. And that would be just about a $20,000 expense to Fund 50 or the food service fund. And the second item is replacing some cleaning equipment that we have out in the district. It would be a walk behind carpet shampooer for the high school and 2 new riding floor scrubbers for West and Harmony. And that will continue to cycle us through our cleaning equipment replacement so we don't have it all come due in one year. And then the next 4 years are just a look ahead on what could potentially be coming your way next year. So any questions on the vehicle and equipment replacement schedule before I move on to the...
I had asked in the meeting, and I'm not asking again for my knowledge, but I think it's important to highlight, especially just given the nature of budgeting, why we don't purchase used vehicles, like even a year or two older.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, it might seem logical to look at, a van or a truck or whatever that's a year or two old, try to save whatever money we can, but it makes the most sense for the district to purchase brand new because we as a school district qualify for the government and municipality discount program through General Motors. There's a similar one through Ford and so on and so forth. So when you look at the cost of the van, there's no way you or I could go out and purchase that van for that cost because it's, right off the top, it was like a $13,000 discount right off the top just because we're a government entity. So that is very, very important to point out. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just the vehicle is already ordered. We're hoping that we can get it in by August, just in case you were wondering. And for the capital maintenance and improvement plan, I present a little bit more of a detailed PowerPoint at the Finance Committee. I shortened it up for time's sake. On the PowerPoint itself, I like to start off, in the Finance Committee highlighting the whole process of how it's developed, so on and so forth. But I'll start here with just highlighting the previous investments that the board has made for the last, 5 or 6 years. It really shows the baseline funding commitment that the board has made. And then, obviously a whole bunch of other projects that we've done on top of that baseline amount to try to maximize and take advantage of different projects as they come up as needs throughout the year. So exactly like last year, our baseline budget for fiscal year 2022-23 will be $700,000. And, just to look back at what we've done this year, we had the 700,000. As you remember, we did the boilers at the high school. We've done a lot more on top of that. So we are always looking to take advantage and every funding opportunity that we can to get additional projects done on top of that baseline amount. And then we can get to the fun stuff, the projects for this year. Starting at Milton East, we're finally getting to cycle through the original flooring to Milton East back when it was originally constructed. The highest priority need there is replacing the flooring in the corridors, and that's the project totals listed there for that. And then, moving forward, we'd like to tackle 4 classrooms a year until we get through that whole building. And at West, it's the same scenario, except the highest priority needs at West were those 4 classrooms listed. So that includes the abatement of the existing flooring and new LVT flooring that matches what we did in the new additions at both buildings. At Harmony, we are proposing to replace window shades in the main office and also replace the flooring. This is one that kind of got left behind when Harmony was renovated back in 2005. So this would be taking care of those 2 smaller projects. Nothing at North Side for this coming year. The middle school, we would be looking at repainting and replacing acoustical wall panels in the gym, as well as refinishing the main gym floor. The real driver for this is the gym floor itself. It's at past its useful life, to the point where in that picture you can see sections of the floor is starting to delaminate. And when that happens, it's time to take it all the way back down to the raw maple and start over again. So that's the plan. And while we're doing that, it would make sense to update the late 80s, early 90s paint scheme in there, freshen that thing up. And I know we'll miss the blue carpet too on the walls. And that's a rendering of what it will look like when completed. For the high school, we would be replacing flooring in the 4 English classrooms in the original part of the building. That's taking out that carpet shown, and there's 9-inch asbestos tile below that too. So we'd be getting rid of both layers and replacing that flooring with carpet tile, like you see in the new additions as well. The 2 largest projects for this upcoming year would be replacing roof sections 2, 3, and 4 at the high school. That's kind of hard to see the graphic, but that would be the 2 roof sections over top of the original building, the old auditorium, I guess I could call it, as well as the section of roofing over the 1998-99 science room additions. So those are replacing roofs that have 15-year life expectancies. So we got 22 out of them, 23. So we'll be putting 30-year roofs on those. And another project, larger scale project at the high school is, long story short, through the referendum projects, we added a chiller loop to the high school, meaning not the individual rooftop units serving individual spaces inside. And this would be adding 3 of those air handlers to our chiller loop, which is a very energy efficient thing to do, and also is pretty much taking 20-plus-year-old equipment off the roof and things that cost a lot of money to maintain. So this is a phase 1 of 2 of getting through all of our equipment that we can put onto the chiller loop. So look forward to this, a similar project to this next year. And then district parks. This is a follow-up from the meeting we had about a month ago. This is phase 2 then of the Central Park project, phase 2 being the parking lot. That parking lot and all the asphalt paths that are around there. So that would be a project that would then kick off July 1st, pending approval. And then the last project would be, updating, repainting, refreshing the outbuildings at Central Park, as shown in the photo there. They could use a little bit of attention, and that would really refresh those buildings for our use as well. And project totals by site and by fund. are there. Again, $700,000 would be the funding commitment from Fund 10, and Fund 80, the Community Parks Fund, would be that 116,143 for that total there listed. Any questions on the projects highlighted?
Stephen, same comment as I had for Ryan. I know a lot goes into this, and you've got a lot of acres of building and even more acres of parking in other areas to maintain and monitor. So thank you for putting together the presentation and the photos of what's coming right now down the pike, but also kind of the roadmap of where we're going. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. A lot of people go into making this plan, so I'm just the guy standing up here, but there's a lot of people that weigh in on this, and it's pretty thorough and comprehensive, where we feel pretty good about what we're presenting. So thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions about what Stephen presented, Mr. President, I will move to approve the 5-year capital maintenance and improvement plan and the vehicle and equipment replacement schedule, specifically the projects and equipment outlined for the 22-23 fiscal years as presented.
Motion on the floor made by Joe, seconded by Leslie, to approve the 5-year capital maintenance and improvement plan and the vehicle and equipment replacement schedule, specifically the projects and equipment outlined for the 2022-23 fiscal years as presented. Any more questions or discussion on that?
Just quickly before the board votes, I want to echo what I shared about the technology team, that Stephen and the building and grounds staff do an outstanding job, both taking care of our facilities and planning for future needs. So thank you, Stephen, and for your whole team for your work.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor respond with aye. Aye. And opposed, nay. That motion carries. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Stephen, very much for all your work.
All right, and then we will invite Carrie Bradley back to the podium here. The last piece of our meeting was Carrie giving us an update on our debt service and how that impacts our tax levy and associated pieces.
So the first document I think you're going to find for me, Kim, is our outstanding debt. Carrie, excuse me, she's telling you you're muted. Thank you. So the first document we're going to look at is the outstanding debt. A couple of years ago, we had referendum approved to issue $5.9 million in debt, and we are finishing up those projects. At the same time, we've been paying principal payments on that debt. And so the summary in front of you shows that we have approximately $45.8 million in principal remaining on that debt. And one of the reasons we're talking about this is we're considering paying down some of that debt early because we have a projected decrease in our tax levy. So to preface, we're going to look at the debt and see if we have funds to pay down some of that future debt. So if you get the total tax levy column, you can see that next year's debt service payment is about $4.2 million. And we can carry that to the next document. And if you look in their projection column, you see the yellow box that's highlighted tax levy, and then you go up to Fund 39. That $4.2 million is our estimated levy for next year based on our early budget development and projections. So when we look at this document, it's around the tax levy and a mill rate analysis. And so the first thing to draw your attention to is the total levy. You can see in our current fiscal year, it's down to a little over 19 million, and it was almost 19.5 in the prior year. And that levy is made up of funds 10, 39, and 80, which are operations, debt service, and community service. And so as we're looking at a projected decline again for next year in that total levy. So the next thing that we look at beside total dollars levied, when we talk about how we do our work, is we talk about mill rate. And mill rate is based on the equalized value, which is the TIF out, which is the second yellow line. And you can see in fiscal year 22, our TIF, or our equalized value, went up 8%. The prior year, it was 6.8%, and the year before that, it was 6%. For projection purposes, I'm only conservatively increasing it by 5%. Okay, and part of the reason equalized value makes a difference is that is part of the calculation of mill rate. And a lot of people will talk about their mill rate, which is your rate per thousand of equalized value. And we're always going to remind people that is the district rate, that is not your individual tax bill, because we can only control the district tax levy. And then that is divided by your equalized value. So if you look at the mill rate calculation, you can also see that our mill rate went down. Let's see, in fiscal year 21, it went down to $9.18 per thousand from $9.26. This year, it went down to $8.29, and the early projection has it going down below $8 per thousand. So, given that controlled revenues aren't increasing, we are considering, or the committee was considering, taking advantage of the opportunity to pay off some debt early, so that we could levy and pay that debt off early, since we have some room in our tax levy. Typically, the goal is to have a steady mill rate, and also at least a steady levy. You generally don't want to see the levy going up and down. And the committee kind of talked about some history of the levy going up and down and sticker shock when it goes up and down, and we don't want people to have that experience. And so then the last document you have is just comparing our mill rate to other school districts in Rock County. And the takeaway for me on that document is that we have a favorable mill rate in Rock County. You can see fall of this year, we had the lowest mill rate of the Rock County school districts. And the prior year, we were second lowest, and then the year prior to that, we were third lowest. So for me, the takeaway is we have a favorable mill rate with other school districts in the county. So what did I miss, Joe?
I don't think you missed anything.
All right.
Questions from anyone?
I think just piggybacking on the commentary we had in the Finance Committee, again, having the opportunity to potentially prepay some debts and then recognize those interest savings in future years. If we have the opportunity to do that now and set the district's budget up to be incrementally better in the future, right? Making that decision now, it's definitely worth exploring. I know we haven't gotten to the exactly what that would be at this point, but the idea I think is sound, and again, provide some flexibility to future boards on when interest savings are recognized. Should we be able to move forward with that?
And also we will have the levy less in the future because of the payoff of the principal as well. So basically, I was asking the committee if I should pursue, it's called debt defeasance, and I can contact Bear, who's our financial advisor and has our bond, issued our bonds, to pursue the conversation further. So it's kind of looking for the thumbs up, pursue it further, or we're not interested at all, and so Carrie, don't waste your time. But no, that's kind of what we're looking for here is the go ahead, and I think the committee had a consensus that we should go ahead.
Yeah,
I think that's what you were saying, right?
Yeah, there's obviously no action item tonight, but I think there was, and see that for everyone else in attendance is needed, but I think there was strong support to explore the option so that any future meeting, we can hopefully see what the details of that would be and then perhaps make a decision. But yeah, tonight isn't anything further than let's explore and see what happens.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Joe or Carrie?
I think the only other thing that I want to add is we work hard to both provide a high quality education for all of our students and do it within our available resources. So we have an obligation to spend the taxpayers' funds in an effective and efficient manner while meeting the needs of all of our students. So Carrie and her team have done a great job of providing information, looking both at the trend data and comparable data to other school districts. And we'll continue to have those discussions about how we can both utilize the resources that we have available and meet the needs that we have as a school district.
All right, thank you so much, Joe. And thank you, Carrie, as always. We will move down to item 4A, discussion and possible action on early college credit program and the Start College Now applications for the 2022-23 school year. Mr. Billhorn, I will turn it over to you.
Well, good evening. You have in the board packets the applications for it is the fall semester for the Start College Now. For a real quick reminder, Start College Now is the opportunity for students to take credits through your local technical college. Most all are through Black Hawk Tech. We do have one with Gateway Tech. Students have the ability to take up to a certain number of credits. They have to 16 credits through this program over the course of their years in high school. They can take it during their junior and their senior year. These students have to have they've had to go through the program that we currently have at the high school, or these are programs we go on. So most of these students, well, the CNA program has been there for a long time. That's usually the most common one we bring forth at this time of the year, but also some of our students that are progressing through welding programs actually, and also some egg programs as well, both at Black Hawk Tech. The second program is early college credit. That is through, or ECCP, that is through the UW system. Students can take credits through that system as well. That's actually available to students 9 through 12, and they can actually take that through the summer or the fall. These credits that we have here. This is actually overall again, these are for both ECCP and Start College Now. Students after tonight are free to enroll in those courses. They will oftentimes see if this works with their schedules when they get them next fall. With more and more classes being online, there's less conflicts than there used to be. But I would say overall, these numbers are a little bit down from what we've seen in the past, but that's also because of the number of courses that we have at the school too that are articulated, and many of them are being able to earn college credit or tech school credit while in school. But these are the requests for this summer and next fall. Are there any questions?
Chairman, just a quick comment. I have a daughter who went through one of these programs that was Black Hawk Tech credit, and actually was transferable to UW Platteville.
Yes.
And it was great. And these things really work, and they are very, very useful tools for students. Additionally, I know post-graduation, we had a couple questions, and A.B. Kenyon was exceptionally helpful in trying to maneuver through how do you connect the dots in these things. So I guess just a firsthand comment of this is a really good program, and it's meaningful for kids. And like I said, the staff here was very helpful in kind of maneuvering through some of the things. So less of a question and more of just a comment about the value of offering this.
No, thank you. Yeah, Amy and the counselors too that work with students part of students as they're creating their academic and career plan. This is a tool that they have as they start to flesh that out.
I'll make a motion to approve the early college credit program and Start College Now applications for 22 and 23.
I'll second that.
Motion on the floor made by Leslie, seconded by Dave, to approve the early college credit program and Start College Now applications for the 2022-23 school year as presented. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor respond with aye. Aye. And opposed, nay. Thank you. That motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Billhorn. And we will move down to 4B, teaching and learning data update from Mr. Ruggles. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me this evening, and happy Pi Day to you, Mr. Hoppin. As a former math teacher, I have to give you that shout out. Have a team of my colleagues coming up to share with me tonight. We want to give a just brief update where we're at, kind of, I don't know if I can say spring update. So late winter, early spring update, kind of how we're doing around some things teaching and learning. So we're going to report out on a few of our big rocks, if you will. So K-8, we're going to focus on some high level iReady data, and then a principal from each of the levels is going to talk about specifically how we use that data, and then we'll report out from the high school on a couple of our initiatives around flex time and Chalk Talks. The Chalk Talk was a pilot that we started just within January. So Mr. Billhorn will give a little preview of our successes so far with that pilot. So I want to start with some of our K-8 iReady data. So if you move forward to the next slide, please. So we moved to iReady for our screener last year, and obviously it was an interesting year to have a brand new screener. So really we used it as our baseline year. Had some good success with it, really thought that it gave us some good data around instruction. The number one reason we give this screener is to inform our classroom instruction, to form intervention groups, see how our kids are doing, and then react to how they're doing. Our principals will talk a little more deeply how they do that at each level, but I wanted to share that because normally we don't tend to share a ton of screener data, but the nice thing about iReady, a couple times a year, they give us some good data from the state and the national data, which gives us a roundabout comparison. Hey, how are we doing compared to the rest of the state? How are we doing compared to some of the national norms right now? And that's not the primary use of the screener, but it is something we look at, and it's nice just to compare ourselves from time to time just to see how we're doing, right? If you move forward to the next slide, please. All right. So in front of you, you will see some of the national Wisconsin norms from this winter. All right. The first part of the graph has some historical norms from pre-pandemic. So what iReady did, they did a massive study this year just to see how the nation and how the states are doing compared to the pre-pandemic levels. Even though we don't have that data ourselves here in Milton because we use STAR as our previous screener, they were able to provide what those national norms look like from 1819. You can see the national in-school norms for this winter, quite a drop in the number of kids scoring in the green, so on grade level or approaching grade level, and definitely more that we're struggling and we're below grade level on that national level. Wisconsin's a little better story, and they have it broken down into two different parts. So Wisconsin, those that tested in school, and they broke out those that tested out of school as well. A good number of the virtual schools in Wisconsin do utilize iReady, including JEDI. Last year, when we had our hybrid model, we had some iReady testing in school and also out of school as well. But for the sake of consistency, they've broken down that data and separated that out. So that's how the Wisconsin data from this year shakes out in comparison to the national norms. I'm going to move forward. So this next slide then is where we landed for our winter scores for Milton. As you can see, we had many more students scoring above or at grade level, many more scoring approaching grade level. And really, one of the reasons we moved to iReady is there was a higher level of rigor there and high reliability as compared to the forward exams as well in the state of Wisconsin. And instead of being a norm referenced exam, which is, on any given cohort where it will tell you how you're doing compared to everyone that took that test in that grade level, iReady is different because it is all criterion based. So it's based on the grade level. So when we see our scores in the fall, there's a little more red, there's a little more yellow, a little less green, and the goal is to grow that throughout the year because that end goal is always the same, that we get all kids on grade level or above grade level, that being the goal. So that was just math. Moving forward, our reading scores are very similar as well. Want to point out that on both our math and our reading scores, we're definitely scoring a little above the state for right now. But also, if you compare it to how we're doing national norms before the pandemic, I feel like we're in a pretty good place. We're not perfect. We're doing some really good things. And now I want to turn over to our principals who are going to tell us how they use this data. Again, the most important piece, how we use this data to inform our instruction.
Brian, can I ask you a really quick question? Can you just clarify what the 5 levels are, each of those 5 colors, and what if you know what the cutoffs are for those?
Yeah, you bet. So we can look at the levels through either three bands or 5 bands. So usually beginning of the year, we're starting 3 bands, and that's just on, approaching, and below. And as we break it down into the 5 bands, the dark green is on or above grade level. The early or the light green is early on grade level. Again, so this would be a 3rd grader scoring in light green means they're already meeting standards, right? But they're early on in the standards, but they're have made their where we want them to be. The yellow is approaching grade level, so just under, and then light red is below, And then dark red is, it would be more than one grade level below.
Thank you.
Move forward. Kim, can you move forward, please? Thank you.
At the K3 level, we use the iReady data as one of our pieces. When we work in our PLCs on Monday afternoon, we look at that iReady data for the students, and we can group them according to the specific strand in that area. So for example, if you look at mathematics, you can look at the data broken down by strands, and you can look at, number and operations, algebraic thinking, geometry and measurement, instead of just the overall math area. And so what we have done this year at West is we've really honed in on the number and operations, because if you are not solid in your number operations as a primary student, you're not going to be solid in math. As you continue to grow, you have to have that foundation first. And we look at this specifically, and then we group students for what we call WIN time, W-I-N, what I need. And students are grouped based off of their iReady data as well as their formative assessments in classrooms every week, every 2 weeks, depending on how their exit tickets show that they are mastering that content and then moving up. And what you see on this slide is two different specific student examples that we can get the data right from iReady. And what's really nice about iReady and giving that exact information that students need to know in order to continue to grow. The first student you're looking at is a student who is below grade level in the fall when we first took the iReady. But then look at the growth that student has made. Now, they're not quite to grade level because the green band going across there would mean that they're at grade level, but they've really made a lot of growth. The top bar there on the left-hand side of that first student, by this time in the year, according to iReady, a student should reach 50% of their growth goal in order to be where they should be at the end of the year. And you can see this student has already reached 83% of their growth goal. The bottom bar there is something called a stretch goal. And the stretch goal is really important, especially for students who are below grade level and where they should be, because the stretch goal takes them further than 1 year's growth. And that's what we want to do in order to be able to close that gap. So this particular student is already 50% towards their stretch goal, which by mid-year is where we want them to be on their regular goals. So this is really making a lot of difference by looking at their data and being able to use our PLC times to look at that data and make what kids need. The second chart there is a second student. And what I think is really important there is a lot of times, not a lot of times, sometimes it's really hard as a teacher and to be able to meet these specific needs of every single student in your classroom, because every student has varying needs. But what this shows is we're not only focusing on our intervention time, on our students who need to make the growth to get to grade level, we're also honing in on students who are at grade level and making sure that they're continuing to grow there too. So this student was already at grade level at the beginning of the school year, but is continuing to make sure that we are pushing that student and showing the growth there too. So that second student already met their growth for the end of the year and is already 74% towards their stretch goal. So that student is continuing to grow as well. So it's just one way that we use this data, but especially during those PLC times. Data is great, but if you don't have time to analyze that data and make changes for student need, then data is just data. But the PLC allows us to do this.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback on what Marcia was sharing with the board, in Milton, our professional learning communities are all really grounded in three big questions.
What do we want kids to know? How will we know if they know it? And then what are we going to do if they've already got it or they don't understand it? And the one unique thing about iReady as a tool as compared to our previous screener and STAR is it really helps get at those latter two questions. It helps us identify kids that are struggling and helping teachers form and create groups around specific skills that they need. But it also has some great resources for teachers to dig into to help address some of those lacking skills. So specifically within the program, teachers are able to access grade levels behind or students who are grade levels below standard to be able to really get at what those kids are needing. A couple other things that we're doing with iReady at Northside is we're getting students involved in the process and setting goals and how they want to grow. So Marcia talked about their annual goal and their stretch growth goal. So teachers work with kids to kind of set those goals and check in around those screening windows. Additionally, many have kind of worked at kind of having this 100 goal challenge for kids to complete lessons within iReady. So not only is it like a diagnostic tool for us to identify greater needs, it also has a direct personalized learning and practice for kids based on where they tested at each of those windows.
Good evening. Marcia and John led me right into the middle school portion here. So we actually have a part of our schedule each day called iTime. It's 30 minutes a day, Tuesday through Friday. Students twice a week work on their instructional path that's at their own level. That's called My Path. And the other 2 days a week, they're receiving small group instruction in one of the areas listed up on the screen. So in reading, it could be vocabulary, literature comprehension, or informational text. And then in math, numbers and operations, algebraic thinking, measurement and data, or geometry. Tomorrow, we actually kick off our 6th rotation. And I would say 95% of our students would be either on their 3rd reading group and have had 3 math groups, or vice versa. Try to rotate it where you have 4 weeks of a reading small group and then you move to a math small group after that. All of the kids are placed based on the area most in need, kind of working from that top bullet point down on here. So vocabulary, if a student is not currently at grade level in vocabulary, that's the area of focus to begin with. And all of our core teachers lead in iTime groups. So science, social studies, math, and ELA, again, Tuesday through Friday, and our instructional groupings are ready for us, and we're using the iReady results to be able to practice and stretch and make some movement with our kiddos.
I want to thank all of our K-8 principals for being great instructional leaders, because they've really taken off with iReady and have made it come alive, and they're doing some really good work with it. I can say when I take my teacher and learner hat off and put on my dad hat, I had a 6th grader that came home to talk to me about his iReady score and his growth from fall to winter and what his goals are from winter to spring. So I can say from the dad standpoint that they are definitely living it and using it. Gonna turn it over to the high school to talk about some data around flex time and our pilot on Chalk Talk and our goal in finding a screener at the high school level.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, you know, at the high school, iReady does not go up to the high school level. And so we've been looking for something. I'll get to that in Chalk Talk in a minute. But I also want to take this time to talk about Study Flex, which when we changed to the trimester, when we changed to the 5-period day, we were able to institute this universal time for all students to have equivalent to their win team. What do students need? Individual time for those students that's beyond the classes. This is for learning interventions, for extensions, for what specific students need. In the high school, and the biggest problems we always had prior was having a specific time in a credit-based schedule for them. We didn't exactly get that with some of the various schedules we had during COVID, so we've been very excited with what Study Flex was able to do this year. In short, in Study Flex, it's 45 minutes a day. Students get to schedule themselves for where they need help. On one level, students get to schedule themselves if they wish to have help with a certain teacher or to go to ask questions. They get to do that. Some students may choose to take that time if they are doing well in classes. They can shoot baskets in the gym. They have study hall. They have other options as well. However, what the staff have been able to do is during PLC time, they review their common summative data. They're looking to see how are students doing on their common assessments to say, these are students that are struggling. And they will then teach a request of what we call hard schedule students to say, the students that they've identified during their PSC time, reviewing the common assessments and how students are doing, they'll hard schedule students in. So when they can on Friday, students on the weekend, on Friday, they actually, on the weekend, they can take a look to see where am I, which teachers have hard scheduled me. Maybe I'm hard scheduled for math on Tuesday and Thursday, but on Wednesday and Monday, I can go schedule myself to get extra help in biology. So that's a program that we have instituted this year. Matt Kleinschmidt, associate principal of the high school, oversees that. And as we are still collecting the data on that, we did want to tell one teacher's story too. Lynette Hamill, as we checked to see who's done the most hard scheduling of students. And as we were able to, Lynette Hamill has over 300 students that she's hard scheduled throughout the year to come and get help in her math classes. And as she's seen student grades increase because of that time. It's that extra time that students need that's during the school day versus trying to find time to connect students and teachers before school, after school, which was always a challenge before. Or maybe you had a study hall during that teacher's prep period when they weren't teaching another class. So as we're still learning how to utilize that period of time, we're seeing benefits to that. And I'll go to the next slide, please, Kim. We have been looking for, and the high school admin team and Ryan looking for, is truly a diagnostic tool that gives us some of the specific learning data. So a lot of the tools that are out there, they don't go all the way through the high school. We have been happy with some of the products. We did discover a mid-year product called Chalk Talk, which we have been piloting, and we shared this with the curriculum committee a few months ago. But Chalk Talk gives students a ACT screener, so it actually can give a predicted ACT score. And then the best part about it is it gives a report to that. Again, we did it by homeroom for all juniors this year. We started this actually in late January. It gives a diagnostic tool to that homeroom teacher. These are the areas, specific skills in ACT standards that your homeroom needs to work on, and then give specific lessons that they can work with. We have had some math and English teachers start to take that to say these are the specific skills that their students need to improve to help improve the ACT score. So again, while this is mid-year, we really like what we saw through the initial pilot. The juniors took that prior to taking the ACT. We would have loved to have discovered this sooner, but it's something we are going to be instituting next year at the high school for other grade levels. We'll be doing this instead of taking the pre-ACT because it gives us some of the diagnostic data that we're able to use during our PLCs. We're excited to see what can happen with that. And actually, now that we'll have that study flex time, students can actually take some of those specialized lessons during that study flex period. And it's more than just test prep. It's also working on discrete skills that students are lagging, and we'll be able to utilize that to help improve student learning. All right.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Awesome. Thank you to Jeremy and the high school team. Any questions that you have for me or any of our teacher learning?
I just want to say thank you. Like, that is fantastic that you guys are able to utilize your PLCs in such a way. And I think it's awesome. And I'm excited to hear about that Chalk Talk. And that's a fantastic tool. So
thank you.
Thank you for all the work you guys have done and what you continue to do. So
Ryan, I think piggybacking on Leslie's commentary, as we looked at some of the iReady data, I know we spent some considerable time the last several months talking about where we are academically and seeing, probably not where we would like to be by the end of the school year, how favorably we look in both math and reading relative to the state in-person average and the national in-person average. So appreciate that data from iReady and their compilation of that data. So thank you for sharing it.
You bet.
I just have a quick question. Did you survey all the juniors that have used the pilot? Are you getting any feedback?
For the feedback?
We have not surveyed them yet. They just took it last week. We're going to let them recover from the ACT. And we will get some anecdotal feedback from them in their homerooms.
Great.
Any other questions, comments?
I just want to share that the iReady as a screener for our kindergarten through 8th grade, as was shared, really serves dual purposes. It's a system check, so we can compare how are we doing as a district, how are we doing at each grade level, We even have the ability to break it down by school, by grade level at each school, and by each classroom. So it allows our PLCs to take a look at how, say for instance, a third grade classroom at one of our elementary schools is comparing to the what kind of growth are those students making compared to the growth in a classroom across the hall. And then the teachers can utilize that information from a system level to look at what instructional strategies are being used and what's successful and what isn't working as well. So that's an important part of our PLC work. The other, in addition to the system check, is to be able to have that I regularly scheduled periods throughout the year, have up-to-date data on where students are in math and reading. And then we have a goal of meeting the individual needs of every student. And in order to be able to do that, we need to know where students are. So we utilize this tool to also identify what students need more support to get up to grade level if they're below grade level, or what students need additional enrichment if they're already at grade level and we want them to be able to continue to grow. So kudos to the principals, not just the ones that shared tonight, but all of our principals for leading that work in their schools. And then our teaching staff and our support staff in all of our classrooms do an outstanding job of working really hard to meet the need, identify those student needs, and meet those student needs for every learner. So hats off to our staff for the work that they've been doing and continue to do.
I don't mean to drag it on, but just piggybacking off of what Jen had said, she asked about students and the feedback there, but are you seeing good feedback from parents at like parent-teacher conferences when they see the growth that their child is achieving at that time? I assume you've gotten a lot of positive feedback for that.
Any of the principals want to share specific feedback you've gotten? Or? I just have the anecdotal, from the principals that they've heard positives and good things are happening. So I don't have any individual stories about that, but it's definitely helped us really focus on learning and have good conversations around learning within the classroom.
Are you sharing that with the families? Are you sharing your scores specifically?
We are. Yeah.
We do not share that with parents because although this gives us a lot of great information to help change our instruction and do that, it is only one test day. And if a kid has a bad day and the parent sees that they went from here to here, but it's maybe because they just had a bad day, that doesn't really show the complete picture of the child. And we want to show what the growth over time is and not just on a specific day.
The only thing I would say to echo that is, as Mr. Donovan said, it's a universal, right, tool that we use and then dig deeper. And so those conversations at parent-teacher conferences are a bit more detailed in the day-to-day. So that would be the Cheryl at conferences, not so much.
Yeah. That's
it. Hide from parents if they ask, but we just don't want it. I mean, it is a day.
It's trying to find that balance between using it as an instructional tool and not having it become a high stakes kind of event. So,
any other questions or comments? I'd like to thank all of the administration and you, Ryan, also, as well as all the teachers for all the time and effort you put into identifying students' needs as well as their strengths and working to move all students forward, which is what we're all here for. So thank you so much. We'll move down to item 5A, action on staffing reports.
I'll make a motion to approve the staffing report.
I'll second. Whatever.
Motion on the floor made by Rick, seconded by Dave to approve the staffing report as presented. Any questions or comments?
One quick thing that I'd like to share there is you'll see listed on the staffing report the Director of Student Services position with Susan Probst's upcoming retirement. And I just wanted to point out that Julia Garshinsky is here at our board meeting today. Julia, you want to give a wave to the board so they know who you are? she was able to come over and join us for the board meeting tonight.
Thank you for being here. Back to the motion. Any other discussions or comments? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor respond with aye. Aye. And opposed, nay. Motion carries. Moving on to action on gifts and donations.
I move to approve the gifts and donations with gratitude, as always.
I'll second that.
Motion on the floor made by Leslie, seconded by Dave to approve the gifts and donations with gratitude. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor respond with aye. Aye. And opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. And moving down to upcoming meeting dates, Mr. Dahman.
A couple upcoming meetings. A reminder that this is the only regularly scheduled school board meeting for the month of March. So our next regular school board meeting will be on April 11th, the second Monday of April, a regular time and regular place, 6:30 here in the PDC. We have a few different committee meetings coming up and one that we need to schedule. Ones that are already scheduled on Wednesday of this week, March 16th. The HR committee will be meeting with the Milton Education Association on negotiations. That starts at 4:30 here in the PDC. So again, 4:30 on the 16th. Next week, a week from today, the Benefits Advisory Group has a virtual meeting at 4:30 on Monday the 21st. We have a policy committee meeting scheduled for April 6th at 4 p.m. here in the PDC. That's policy committee, April 16th, 4 p.m. April 6th, excuse me. A finance committee meeting on April 13th. That will be in the second floor conference room at noon. Finance committee meeting, April 13th at noon in the second floor conference room. And then we're looking for a time on March 23rd for a curriculum committee meeting. That meeting will be to discuss progress on the new English language arts curriculum. So, curriculum committee members, is there a time on March 23rd that works for curriculum committee? As Ryan shared, if the 23rd doesn't work, we could also look for times on Thursday, March 24th.
Does that work for you, Shelley?
Noon on the 23rd? That sounds great.
And will that be here?
That'll be in the second floor conference room. That was everything that we had for upcoming meetings.
All right. Thank you for that.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion on the floor, seconded to adjourn. All in favor, respond with aye. Aye. And opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, one and all.